Hi everyone, it's Chad. Thank you for joining me. Today we're going to go over how to set up for the multidimensional chromatography. And this setup is actually very easy. It's precisely the same one when we did the ion exchange resin selection, and that's when we just used these 4 columns. Writing the method, remember we planned on using these 4 buffers. So the difference between that setup, the resin selection method, setup and this multi-dimensional chromatography setup is that we still have the same 4 columns, but we're going to be adding this desalting column right here to the column valve. And then we're going to have a 5 mil loop. We had talked about using a 10 mil loop, but here at the very end of that video where we were writing the method, we decided to change it to a 5 mil loop. Very important, right? Okay, and then our sample is in a different flavor buffer, right? And then this time, instead of like when we did the resin selection method, right, we only had 2 buffers, 1 running buffer and we had 1 running buffer and 1 elution buffer. Now we have 4 buffers, 2 of each, right? So one is going to be for running buffers, one is going to be pH 9 and the other one's going to be pH 8. And then the elution buffers are the same, 9 and 8, but we have 0.5 molar sodium chloride in them. And the idea is to do each ion exchange column in all the different combinations of the buffers, right? So we're going to have the first 4 runs, we're going to be a pH 9 group, and the second 4 runs, we're going to be a pH 8 group. So that's what we were planning on doing. But what I decided to set up was something slightly more complicated, and I did 16 runs. So here we have 4 elution buffers, right? And we still have the pH 8, pH 9. We still have the 0.5 molar sodium chloride, but I also added 250 millimolar ammonium sulfate. Now, why did I do this? Well, ammonium sulfate and sodium chloride have different properties. Sodium chloride is slightly more chaotropic than ammonium sulfate. And then you'll get different interactions with charge groups, both in the protein and with the resin. So now we're doing 16 runs. So we have a group at pH 9 and a group at pH 8 where we test both sodium chloride, ammonium sulfate for each one. So all 16 possibilities. I'm going to show you how I worked my way through the scouting really quickly, and then we're going to actually show you a sample run, and then quickly we'll go over the results. So here we are with the results of all 16 runs. What I'm trying to do here is just emphasize to you what a setup like multidimensional chromatography can do. I don't want to really go over these particular results too much in detail because I don't think there's that much added value. So that said, let's look at these results. So first thing I'm going to do is highlight the first run, and then I'm going to hold down the shift button and then select them all. And then I'm going to hit compare. It might take a minute for it to generate. While it's doing that, I want to show you this one started at 2:47 p.m. and the last one's finished at 3:48, or it started at 3:48 a.m. So, while I was sleeping at night, the system was working hard for me to generate all these results, which is pretty cool in my opinion. All right, so here we are. There's again a lot to go over, so let's just cut it into several different segments, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the conductivity up first. I'm going to highlight that. So here's the desalting section, right? And looking at this, we can see there was pretty decent separation. When you do with this particular version of evaluation and you do a large comparison, it doesn't show you the fractions. So I can't show you that the system was consistently able to fractionate this, but for the most part it looks like it was able to really get this right where we wanted it. We have a new buffer for our protein, so high five to that. Then we can look at the loading. And for loading, we can see really there's two distinct groups. There are some differences which could be a concern, but we have a group which for loading ion exchange, not that much protein came through the column, and then for loading ion exchange, a lot more protein came through the column, but something still bound. My guess is that this is probably the pH 8 group up here, and this is the pH 9 group down here, which might tell us that with however much I was loading on here, we're probably overloading it a little bit. I think, let's see here, I was running about 4 to 6 milligrams for each run, so that kind of tells us something. All right, so here's the actual elutions, and I'm going to turn off the conductivity here in just a second, but I wanted to show you more or less, for the most part, our curves were the same, and I'm going to change this to millisiemens. So every single run was around 40 or higher, between 40 and 45 millisiemens. So it looks like all this all kind of came into the same zone, but there are definitely some differences, which is all right. The curve is really linear though. Okay, so the gradient is really linear. So I'm going to turn off conductivity, and then now we can just look at the elutions by themselves. All right, so we can see there's most of it where's the data points thing here? Okay, so quite a lot of the peaks eluded here at 66 mils, and another big group eluded here at 67. So there's a 1 column volume difference between them, and then there's also another big elution right here, When I first did the resin selection run, I thought that this peak might be like inconsistent, but I'm kind of thinking now that this was probably like a real thing, and that we want to pay attention to this for eliminating some impurities, right? I would say that just looking at this pH, I'm guessing that these peaks are all pH 8 and these are all pH 9, though actually probably not true, because I remember when we did the resin selection, some of the peaks were like a little bit to the left and a little to the right, so we could probably, if we could look at this and probably tease this out, like all the DEAE peaks are always over on the left side or something like that. That would be really interesting to figure out. But again, we do see that some of these curves have a shoulder here on the far right side. That's probably, what is that I'm trying to say? It could probably be resolved with a longer gradient, right? So if we wanted to, we could go back, rerun the same 16 runs, but do it with, a 20 CV gradient, because I think I did a 10 CV gradient here. Okay, that's really all I wanted to show you. Thank you for watching. I hope you're able to come up with a similar setup and you're able to use this. You can kind of start to see, if you're aware of design of experiment, you can kind of start to see, I bet, how chromatography sort of leads to the concept of design of experiment. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.